transformation move at a linear rate, but in 2020, humans started to behave differently, and we've seen what I call the coronavirus accelerant, which has changed the speed and the rate that we are digitally transforming at. This was cited in an article by Forbes, this article here, but it's also exposed the digital divide. You can go to the next slide, but having had to move this way so quickly. This is a typical school in Kenya. This is a computer lab in Kenya. But I think in education, we've seen the most impact in terms of being left behind. So if you're at home and you've got a fast internet in your office, or you've got a good mobile network in the city, it's okay. Some of us even have been moving out and working from the countryside where we have good connections. But it is the schools that were closed during the pandemic, not having access to high-speed broadband, and in many countries, children having no education for almost a year or longer. And it's a global trend of exposing digital divide. Even in New York City, they were finding that some children were not able to afford broadband to have online lessons. But anyway, the problem has been deeper in Africa with both schools not having fast broadband and also children not having enough broadband connectivity or devices they can use to access lessons when they're at home. We can jump to the next one. Before I talk infrastructure, I want to talk about networks. And just, I'll use some terms here, but for those that aren't so techie, we talk of 4 miles when we're building networks. We talk about the first mile. The first mile is the main connection into a country. That can be a subsea cable up to a landing point, or it can be a terrestrial cable into a capital city, as we've seen in Juba. But it's the first connection that comes into that country and to the main places. Then we have what we call the middle mile. The middle mile becomes often a backup to the first mile, but it connects up the other cities in the regions of the thing. And a lot of government fibre projects have focused on addressing the middle mile. We've also built middle mile in a number of countries as well. But it includes as well internet exchange points, which are where the internet traffic and where the data is exchanged. Then we come to the what we call the invisible mile, which is around policy and spectrum and good governance, data protection laws, cyber security, the hidden things that enable the infrastructure of the internet to work. And then last but not least, in fact, perhaps the biggest challenge for Africa is the last mile, which is the connectivity into the person, to the handset or the desktop computer of the user. And this is where the biggest chunk of investment needs to be done across the continent. And just given here, there's a good publication from the ITU, which came out last year, and I was part of the launch, which is the Last Mile Internet Connectivity Solutions Guide. It's talking about how to address meaningful broadband down to the last mile. We have a very good concept of mobile first, with 3G and 4G being very effective. 5G is coming. But that's mobile broadband and designed for mobile handset usage. As we get into using very high speeds in the house, if we're using a lot of online calling or collaboration or video gaming or watching Netflix, we need to have faster, for more meaningful and always-on broadband. So the ITU has given us a great guideline here how to build networks. I'll refer to some of these terms as we go through, so that's why I really wanted to introduce. We can go to the next one. I'll actually talk about subsea cables. So the first thing I mentioned is the first mile. So just an update on where subsea cables are in the Igad region. The first subsea cable, these are existing cables, but the first subsea cable that came and addressed connectivity in the Igad region really was the Easy cable, which launched in around 2009. But that one was touching Sudan, Port Sudan, Djibouti, Somalia. It came to Somalia a bit later, so just about 2014. But it came to Mombasa, and then it stretched to the rest of Africa as well. But that cable is a very African cable. And in the places of Djibouti and Port Sudan is where you can cross-connect onto other cables, Europe to Asia cables, which can then get you to, then we're getting people to a European or an Asian internet exchange point. Having said that, though, Djibouti has by far the most interconnection Port Sudan only has 3 cables to go to Saudi Arabia, and one of them is quite old and overused. But Djibouti has many of the new cables, the big cables that are going Europe to Asia. So most interconnection from Easy onto Europe is going there in Djibouti. Then we have 2 quite interesting regional cables. So one is called Dare One, which I think launched early this year or late last year, which is actually an initiative of Djibouti Telecom. So Djibouti have built a cable, and it's connecting from Djibouti to Mogadishu, Somalia, I think also to Berbera, and then Mombasa as well. So it's one of a first of a few regional cables, and this is very much designed to interconnect the Igad region. As well as that, we have G to A, which is another cable which is connecting from Oman to Berbera and Bosaso. So that is another regional cable, so connecting from some of the large cloud data centers in the Middle East, which are in Oman, and enabling some of these northern areas, Somaliland and Puntland, to have subsea connectivity that's independent. Go to the next slide. Then we have some under construction. So Peace is a cable which is under construction. This is a Chinese project and part of the Belt and Road Initiative, which is now, I think the ship has left and is under construction. But this cable will extend all the way to Europe, crossing through Egypt. I think they'll lease some fibers on the way to Europe. But again, it's touching the same places. It's touching Djibouti, Berbera, Mogadishu. I'm not sure what that's one at the top there, if that's Galkayo, but I don't know where that is. But a possible branch to Kismayo, but I don't think that's confirmed, and then to Mombasa. I mean, this cable is, I think, has got options for other branches, but the initial launch, I think, will include Djibouti, Mogadishu, and Mombasa for certain. But that's being built by China, and Hengtong is the company who used to be Huawei Marine building it. Then there's another cable called To Africa. This is the largest subsea cable ever built, ever. It's an initiative of Facebook, and I've just shown the bit that concerns there the Igad region, but that is coming into Sudan. It's also into the Middle East as well, but it's catching Djibouti, Somalia, Mombasa, stretching all the way down to South Africa, and then all the way around South Africa back up to Europe. So as I say, it's well over $1 billion. It's the most expensive and largest cable ever built, and they keep on adding more extensions and more partners onto the cable, but Facebook are the ones leading that initiative. So yeah, big changes are coming in the connectivity and the infrastructure, and where the infrastructure is going to be coming from in the next few years. This will be launching in 2022 and 2023, respectively, these 2 cables. I'm going to go to the next one. This cable is planned, but it's not yet started. So this is an initiative of Saudi Telecom, Etisalat from UAE. It's being pushed by a number of the operators in the Middle East. It was originally called Africa One and was originally planned to look a bit like To Africa. It's confusing, I know, to have very similar names, but it seems to now be more of a Europe-Asia cable with a branch to Africa, but it's being pushed more from some of the operators in the Middle East. So yet to see. A lot of these cables have been under construction, under design for some years, and this is one of those. We go to the next one. Okay, so subsea cables I've covered, but I want to talk about internet exchanges. It's one of my favorite things, and we have been at Liquid Intelligent Technologies. We've been a big supporter of internet exchanges in Africa. We give free internet for the operations and maintenance for a number of internet exchanges. It's just part of a bit of work we do towards the internet ecosystem community. But here's some stats. This is from an ISOC report that came out earlier this year. And they talk of stages of internet exchange points. They talk of a stage 1 internet exchange, which has less than 30% of localized traffic. They have a stage 2, which is between 30 and 70% of localized traffic. And stage 3 is 70% or more. And at some point during the stage 2 and 3, internet exchanges become regional internet exchanges, serving not just one country, but serving multitude of countries. And internet exchanges like Djibouti Internet Exchange, Uganda Internet Exchange, and Kenya Internet Exchange Point are already regional exchanges, serving clients from multiple countries at those locations. But as they grow and they get closer to stage 3, you get more and more international content coming in. So it's not just local networks, local cloud providers, but it becomes the global giants, and I'll name some of them in a second. But here's a summary of stages of internet exchanges. South Sudan has one under construction. I know it's launching in 2022. Sudan and Somalia have internet exchanges which are in the stage 1 phase, but are operational. I've got a few members, less than 10, but growing. Djibouti is a good-sized regional exchange. It's got a lot of larger international carriers there, but not so many local providers. What makes a very good mix of internet exchanges is having a lot of local providers, the internationals and the cloud. But there's a limited number of local members of Djibouti. Uganda has more members, 28, and that is getting close to stage 3, but still in stage 2. And then Kenya has 3 internet exchanges. I think there's more coming as well. But the largest is the Nairobi Kenya Internet Exchange Point. That's got around 25 gigabits per second of traffic, and that's just on the cusp of being stage 3. We're seeing a lot of global providers being there. We're seeing Microsoft, Amazon, Netflix. I think Google are coming, but you're seeing these people come, and then this makes traffic much, much cheaper. It brings down the price of the internet in Kenya considerably. It lowers the what we call latency, and improves the quality of experience for the internet user in the country. So that's how internet exchanges grow. It takes some years to get to stage 3, but I think there's a couple of countries in Igad region which are yet to have internet exchanges, and I was talking yesterday or on Tuesday to a representative here from Ethiopia. He was saying now that they've licensed the second telecommunications company in Ethiopia. They'll be thinking about building an IXP in Ethiopia, which is great. So I think we only have Eritrea left out as being what haven't got an internet exchange. So we're looking forward to seeing internet exchanges and interconnected internet exchanges across the whole of the Igad region. You can go to the next one. Then we talk of cloud, right? So the map on the left is showing what we call a cloud on-ramp. Now, cloud is largely provided by a very small number of companies in the world, what we call hyperscale cloud operators. And a lot of cloud on-ramps are in North America. There's a heavy concentration in Western Europe, a few in South America, a couple in Australia, and then quite a lot across Asia Pacific and Southeast Asia. But only 2 cities in Africa have got cloud on-ramps, which are Cape Town and Johannesburg. Both Amazon and Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft have launched in South Africa, and Microsoft being in Cape Town and Joburg, Amazon Web Services being in Cape Town with 3 data centers. So, but anyway, it's all a good sign that cloud is coming closer to Africa. It's obviously in Southern Africa. For the Igad region, the closest cloud on-ramps are in fact in the Middle East, in places like Dubai, Oman, and Jordan. These countries are actually closer than Cape Town and Johannesburg. The graph on the right is showing traffic flows, traffic flows between countries. Now, what we have here is quite the thickness of the line. It might be a bit hard to see, but the thickness of the lines are showing how much data traffic is flowing between African countries. We see quite big data flows, or the biggest, in fact, between South Africa and Kenya. But we see some of the other big ones between South Africa and Zimbabwe, Kenya and Uganda, Uganda to Rwanda, and also Ghana to Nigeria. So basically, my hypothesis is that we see data flows following trade routes, following trade, where you have movement of people, movement of goods, you have movement of information and sharing of information. There are about, between Kenya and South Africa, I think there are almost 8 or 9 flights a day before the pandemic. So you have a lot of movement of people, a lot of movement of business, essentially a lot of movement of data. Kenya to Uganda, it's one of the largest goods and trade transport corridors in the African continent. So we see a lot of information moving. And so the linkage between trade and data are very strong and clear. And as we see implementation of the Africa Free Trade Agreement, we will see more digital trade. We'll see more digital assets being traded. People will be buying shares on stock exchanges of other parts of Africa. People will be selling digital assets. We're already seeing this now with the entertainment space, but we'll see more and more of data moving between countries. You can go to the next one. So this, I talked about these big companies. We call them FANGs sometimes. It's the known Facebook, Amazon, Alibaba, Google, Netflix, etc. But I call them the big five. They're all here in Africa: Amazon, Google, Akamai, Apple, Microsoft, WeChat from China, Netflix. So the content's here, really is what I'm getting at. They're not in every country, but they're here on the African continent. So as we build networks and we build infrastructure, we should no longer be focusing entirely on building infrastructure facing towards Europe, but facing towards the west of Africa. And the Prime Minister on Tuesday, he was talking about some of the routes between crossing from the Igad region through Bangui to West Africa. He's talking about crossing north and south. This is the future of digital trade. This is where the internet is coming. We have also a lot of internet being created by local companies and local people as well, but a lot of it's coming onto these platforms. So I mean, Facebook is still local content because it's the content's being created by people in Africa, but it's using a platform which is, although you might think it's an American company, which it is, a lot of the infrastructure and the caching and the data centers are now being hosted in Africa, and the African content that's being created and shared with other people in Africa is being done in African data centers. And go to the next one. This is quite hard to see with the light here, but what I'm showing here on the right-hand side is a picture of travel time to markets within the Igad region, and the left it's not coming out so well, but it's a summary of terrestrial fiber optic networks in the Igad region. So normally we see it, where there's a fiber, there's a trade route, there's a path, and in many places, most of the big trade paths and trade corridors in Africa have started to get fiber, but there's a number of opportunities for fiber optic routes following some of these trade routes in Igad that have not yet been constructed, notably here Somalia into Ethiopia, and also the corridor from Djibouti to Ethiopia as well being underserved. So, but there's quite a lot. If you look in detail and compare those, there's quite a lot of places where fiber is not matching up to where the trade and the access to markets are. So this is an opportunity and a necessity to build the middle mile. We need fiber optic cable to be built on these middle mile routes that are connecting these trade paths, following the roads and railways and other pieces of infrastructure that facilitate trade. You can go to the next one. So then there's also there's a big trend of what I call infrastructure mega projects. I had a good look at the booklet that was supplied with this conference and the Igad plan, and I saw a lot of the projects were roads, actually. A few other pieces of linear infrastructure like power lines, but these mega projects that go from point A to point B in a straight line. If you're building a road, there's going to be need for a fiber. You may not have somebody who wants to invest in a fiber right away. You may not have somebody who will buy it right away, but there's going to be a need for a fiber. So in any linear project, I think it's important to talk about consideration for provision for ICT, fiber optic cable along the way, and that can be a case of laying a duct at the point of construction because it costs nothing extra to build a duct. If you build a duct and then later somebody wants to come and build a fiber optic networks are sometimes built by governments, but more often built by private sector operators. But if you've built that duct, the operator doesn't have to dig it up again, and it saves a lot of money. It saves the cost of construction and digging is the largest piece of building a fiber optic infrastructure. So anyone building a road project should be thinking about this, and it almost should be a standard that open access ducts are laid in any kind of project of this nature. Then you can go to the next one. Okay, so you can keep clicking a bit actually. This is quite technical, and something I presented at a few. Keep clicking until I say stop. But it's something I presented at some technical conferences, which are for internet geeks. Keep clicking. It should be, that's an animation. Keep going all the way to the bottom, because otherwise it will take too long. But anyway, it's showing how, stop now, that's it. It's showing, go back, sorry. It's showing how internet traffic, this is 3 years ago, was moving between major cities in Africa. And this is Cape Town to Khartoum in Sudan, showing how data was moving between Cape Town and Khartoum. Now, it doesn't seem obvious, but basically, the trace is going from Cape Town to London to New York to San Jose to Santa Clara to Hong Kong to Tokyo, and then getting onto that cable. I said there was a cable that comes into Sudan, which is an old cable. It's called FLAG and is an Indian cable. Then getting onto India, and then coming to Sudan, and then going all the way back again. Now, according to basic science and laws of physics, what we call the latency, which is the time taken for a packet to travel from one place to the other, and back, should take 84 milliseconds according to the distance and the laws of physics, but taking 450 milliseconds, so almost getting on for 5 or 6 times longer than it should be, really not taking the best possible path. You can go to the next slide and just click again through. But this is Liquid Telecom's network. It's what we call the One Africa Broadband network. That's one more. Stop there, yep. So this is what we call the One Africa Broadband network, which is our backbone, which is running straight up east-west through the center of Africa. But it's the same internet packet going from Cape Town to Khartoum, but it's only taking 120 milliseconds. It's getting a lot closer to the theoretical minimum, which is 80. Because it's going from Cape Town, it's going to Johannesburg, it's going to Zimbabwe, to Zambia, up into Dar es Salaam, into Nairobi, to the border of Ethiopia, and straight up through Ethiopia to Khartoum that way. So completely changing the way that the internet is working, and this enables a lot of things. If you have 450 milliseconds latency, you can't download large files, you can't have a proper working video conference call, you can't watch a Netflix video, you can't play a video game, you can't trade stocks, high frequency stocks, or these type of things. So a whole bunch of things that are just not possible with these high latencies. You can keep clicking now. I want to go a bit quickly through these ones, but same thing for Djibouti to Douala. Keep clicking as we go through, but Djibouti, Douala, crossing across Africa. It should be 55 milliseconds, but taking 202 milliseconds, going via Europe in this case. It's not going all the way around the road, but exchanging Europe. And then we have Mombasa to Kinshasa. This is previously. So that should be 38 milliseconds. You can go to the end. And that's taking almost 300 milliseconds. Again, it's not very far from Mombasa to Kinshasa, actually. It's only about 4,000 kilometers on Google Maps. But it really taking a very, very long path to get there. Now, we've now launched, you can go to the next slide, but we've launched our Crossing Africa fiber optic network, which is the first east-west route crossing the continent. But we launched that this year, and that is crossing from Kinshasa to Kananga. There are 2 routes actually, from Kananga going south to Lubumbashi into Zambia, but there's another route going straight to Goma. And that now is you can keep clicking, but it's then coming into either through Tanzania and Zambia, or going through Goma and Rwanda and Uganda to Kenya, and completely changing the way that the internet traffic is working. Go on, keep clicking. Thanks. So 61 milliseconds. So now down to 62 milliseconds. So from 202. So an absolute step change in the time it takes to send internet packets using the infrastructure that's there. We've been building extra infrastructure, but we've also been using the infrastructure that is there. The Khartoum one we didn't build in Ethiopia. We used the infrastructure of Ethiopia Telecom and the Ethiopia of Sudatel, the infrastructure of Sudatel to get to Khartoum. But completely changing, using our network and other people's networks, interfacing at borders, and changing the way that we do our digital networks. So I hope that makes sense. It is quite technical, I guess, but I think it's quite good to bring it in. This is our vision of an interconnected Africa. So we've launched Cape to Cairo. We're looking at multiple routes crossing east and west, and let's say Tuesday the former Prime Minister mentioned going into Bangui and crossing from West Africa to Sudan that way. It was something we're working on with partners there. We're continuing to build and invest, and we're also working to form partnerships with existing, well-established and working fixed-line networks who have infra. A West African hub is emerging in Lagos. So Lagos is one of the largest, or in fact the largest economy in Africa. So it's no surprise to become a connectivity hub. But this, these major trading centers and the major economic centers of Africa, Cairo, Lagos, Morocco, Casablanca, and in Morocco, Mombasa, Nairobi, and Cape Town and Durban. These are some of the biggest cities, and so where some of the most banking and trading is done, and we're having connections between them, and it's enabling African business to really shift the way they do things. It's allowing them to shift to the cloud, and they can access a cloud data center. It doesn't have to be in their own country. It can be in a data center somewhere in Africa or the Middle East. I mentioned it can be, or even in Europe. But you can use these things. The networks are there. Financial hubs are connected, and Africa Free Trade Agreement is coming, or it's in force, in fact, and is coming along. It's going to change the importance of ICT infrastructure in delivering the Africa Free Trade Agreement. I cannot stress enough. Next slide, thanks. So yeah, just when we come to broadband, which is back to the last mile problem of connecting people. Broadband is a commercial thing. It's being done by commercial operators. And it's, I think, governments need to really focus on appropriate policy, enabling policy, because this is really going to get done by telecommunications companies. A lot of investment is going to be needed. We're seeing that mobile networks, GSM networks, 4G and 5G, are giving people the first internet experience, but we're seeing then that fibre to the home or fixed wireless access to the home is giving high-speed broadband. And there becomes a lot of economic factors around capital costs, economic costs, as well as the population density and per capita income, which drives the revenue opportunity. So it's quite a lot. This is from the last mile connectivity toolkit that I mentioned, the ITU document. If you're interested in this, I recommend reading that in full. It goes into a lot more detail in the economics of last mile. You can go to the next one. But yeah, just touching on that point about the economic viability and the graph, the pictures here. Again, it's hard to see the colours in this slide, but this is from the Kenya census data. It's mapping out the data that was collected in the Kenya 2019 census, which is asking people if they're internet users. So we have two types of data about internet users. We have data that's collected from mobile phone subscriptions. It says there were 50 million internet users in Kenya, which is connected from the supply side. But this census is obviously collecting demand-side data by asking people, do you use the internet? And the reality is there's a difference between the two. We see high concentration of internet users in some counties, but Nairobi and some of the counties close to Nairobi being very high concentration of users, and Mombasa as well. The same with laptop users, laptop and tablet users. It's the main cities that have got the most laptop and tablet users. But as soon as you start getting into the more rural counties, even some of the marginalized and ASAL areas as well, we see it really dropping off. We see well below 10% of internet users, and we see well, the same with laptop users, as well as the rural urban digital divide. We see a gender digital divide in this data as well. They asked the same by gender, so we see the gender divide in men versus women using the internet as being wider in rural areas than it is in the cities. So you get multiple levels of digital divide. But I think this is a similar trend for any country in the Igad region. Yeah, I can go to the next one, it's fine. So, here's something that's being done from a long-term development project side to address an area of digital divide. UNICEF and the United Nations Broadband Commission, in a partnership under the name of GIGA initiative, are working on an initiative to connect all the schools in the internet, all the schools in the whole world to internet, to high-speed internet. And they have going for a process of mapping out schools. It's very hard to quantify how much it will cost to connect all the schools in a country if you don't know where they are. So mapping their locations, mapping the locations and populations and the numbers of enrolled pupils and numbers of working teachers at the schools. We at Liquid Intelligent Technologies, we're working with UNICEF on some of this data at a global level, and we've collected locations of about 150,000 schools in Africa, and we've collected this from research projects that have been done. We've collected it from open data projects, or we've gone knocking on government doors. We've gone to the ministry and said, "Hi, Mr. Minister of Education, tell me where the schools are." And we're collecting as much information, we're validating, merging it together, and working with UNICEF to improve the quality of that data as well. And we're working to connect schools to the internet. So we've connected across the African continent, we've connected about 4,000 schools. Most of these have been in 3 large projects in South Africa, and two in South Africa and 1 in Kenya. But we are embarking on similar projects in Zimbabwe already. We've been awarded a tender in Zimbabwe from a universal service fund. So in most countries, operators pay a percentage of their revenue into a universal service fund, which is supposed to provide universal service. A lot of these funds have not been very quick in dispersing the funds. But they're starting to come out now. The funds are starting to spend their money and use that to build infrastructure operated by private sector telcos to connect schools. And you know, we would really want to see all 150,000 schools across the territories that we're looking at. We'd like to see them all connected. But it's an example of a development project that can be done that isn't necessarily about infrastructure. And because I was saying, a lot of the Igad projects I saw were all focused around building a road, building this, but just finding out where your schools are, locating and plotting this data can be done at a very fractional cost, but it's very necessary in a long-term piece of development that is being done. And I think there's plenty of organizations that could go and do that kind of surveys, going to the ground and finding out where the locations are. A bit on technology choice, of the schools we've connected to internet, because a lot of that 4,000 is in South Africa. Many of them have been in fibre. But you need a combination of technologies to connect all schools. You need to have direct fibre to a school, straight to the door, fibre to the building. You're going to have some kind of wireless access networks where you have a fibre to a tower, and then a wireless link, a point-to-point link, dedicated without sharing, goes to a school location. And then the remaining, between 40 and 15%, depending on the geography of a country, are going to need a satellite still. A lot of people are not going to have a fibre near them in their lifetimes. Children who are at school now, they'll never be near a fibre, so they're still going to need a satellite connection to make sure that nobody is left behind. You can jump to the next one. And then, look, a last piece of... there are other areas of infrastructure. I've talked a lot about the basics of building networks. But I see things like mobile money platforms that facilitate payments and cross-border payments. I see these as being part of infrastructure for trade, part of infrastructure for Pan-African trade. There are other things as well. Even in Kenya, you might have seen, those people who are visitors here today, they might have seen a lot of these motorcycles going around. But these are people doing deliveries and things like this. And this is the infrastructure needed for e-commerce. Fast delivery drivers controlled by digital platforms as to where they're going to deliver quickly to, so we can trade digitally online. But the most important is innovation hubs. So this is data on the left, looking at the number of innovation hubs across the continent. There are 618 tech hubs in Africa, and in many countries. I think most countries have got at least one. But this is where young men and women who've finished their studies and they're starting out and making tech innovations. This is where they go and work. This is where they're creating the applications and digital services of the future. And really, I think it's that innovation which is going to be using the infrastructure that us old folk are building for them, and that is the platform and the legacy that we should be leaving as we think of infrastructure. We can go to I think it's the last slide. Yeah, so the last slide. So don't forget satellite. I mentioned that if you're looking at connecting every if you have an ambition to connect every school or every government building or every hospital in a particular country, it doesn't matter what country it is, you're going to need some satellite connections. And we're seeing a huge amount of innovation in satellite coming. We used to talk of satellites being geostationary, being very expensive, being very heavy, costing billions of dollars and lasting for 15 years. But we're now talking of low Earth orbit satellites, LEOs. There are many companies doing this, but some of them are making more noise than others. But companies like OneWeb and Starlink, but Starlink perhaps becoming one of the most famous. But we were seeing hundreds or thousands of satellites going to be in the air. And this is going to be a big part in providing universal broadband in the Igad region. I'm not sure whether we'll see these services launch maybe towards the end of next year. Some of them might launch in Africa. But as they launch in Africa, there's going to be a need for more satellite infrastructure to be built. We used to have large 16-meter or 32-meter antennas that were our international gateways. But the equipment needed for the low Earth orbits is different. So we'll see a number of new teleports being built, which will be uplinks and downlinks to connect locally to these low Earth orbit satellites as they fly over. We'll see a lot of investment in infrastructure. It'll be made by these LEO companies because they will need to open up these markets. They will put these close to the data centers, the hubs of connectivity that are there, so they can access the bandwidth, they can access the fiber. They'll use that to uplink internet onto the satellites locally. And the picture on the right, and I just want to sort of, anything's possible, but that is the San Marco platform off Malindi, which is part of an Italian space agency space center. The space center is still there, tracking satellites and looking after satellites in orbit. The platform is no longer used, but they used to launch rockets. They used to launch satellites from Malindi. There's a reason that they launched them from Malindi. It's very close to the equator. And with these thousands of satellites going into orbit at the moment, there is, it might seem hard to believe, but there is a considerably decent case for building satellite launch pads anywhere that is close to the equator. So southern Somalia, northern Kenya, South Sudan, anywhere here is a great place and location for launching satellites, as well as for tracking and communicating with them. So anything's possible. Infrastructure changes. We might be talking of fiber optic cables right now, but just to leave that in your mind that we in the industry are now talking about the next generation of satellite teleports, completely different from the last lot. So I think that's my last slide. I'll end on that. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ben Roberts, for that presentation. And I think another round of applause won't hurt. Please help me. Thank you. So we are going to have a moderated discussion, very briefly guided by Zakaria Kingori. And then we pick it up from there. So, Zakaria, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Blazer. I'd like to thank Ben for that very informative presentation, which was also somehow with a lot of, complication for us to understand. For most of us, it's just accessing internet, using the digital technology to do financial transactions through the phone. You see, But this in-depth information that has been presented today is quite, informative. And I was waiting to hear about the 5G, there's different kinds of of internet capabilities. And I think maybe that is information you can get in the when we interact with the presenter. Now, without wasting more time, I would like to invite the delegates to contribute or make any queries with regard to the information that has just been presented to us. And also I would like to personally appreciate that there is some information that has come to our knowledge that we didn't know, that Juba is connected with fiber optic. So the floor is open. We start with, we have Ethiopia, we have Uganda, then Kenya. And then after those first three interventions, we get the response from the presenter. Okay, Ethiopia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you also, Mr. Ben, for the nice presentation. My points are mainly on utilization of the infrastructure which is going to be in place, particularly when we are having the fiber optics infrastructure. The ultimate goal is to bring digital transformation in the region, in the nation at large. So in this regard, we have to work on the elements of digital economy, and one of these elements is having an integrated cloud infrastructure. So where we are in terms of Igad and what we are supposed to do in order to realize an integrated cloud infrastructure, because in Ethiopia, for example, we are trying to have Tier 4 ready, Tier 3 cloud data center solution, which is going to provide nationally the cloud services. So, but for regional integration and for regional economic collaboration, we also need regional cloud infrastructures and regional cloud solutions. So I really want to hear from Liquid and Mr. Ben on how we are supposed to work in this regard and what initiatives are there, maybe in the company itself, in order to support such cloud infrastructure, integrated regional cloud infrastructure. This is one point. The second thing is, when you go to digital economy, the critical problem or the critical challenge that we are going to face is the cyber security issue and the threat from cyber world. So we need also to have cyber infrastructure, particularly security infrastructures and solutions, such that nationally and regionally we are supposed to be safe when we are moving towards the digital economy. And in this regard, I think I didn't hear any issue with regard to security infrastructures, regional integrated security infrastructures, and what we have in mind, what we have in plan in order to put this in place. The third element is a soft element, of course, but very crucial, because if you have the infrastructure, if you have the solution, but if we don't have skilled personnel and literate personnel in order to utilize these solutions and infrastructures, again, it is going to be a loss. So we have to work regionally in an integrated fashion to realize an integrated digital literacy solutions and also programs. So we are supposed to work in this regard too. So what are your reflections on these three pointers? Thank you.
Uganda, then Kenya.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ben, for the presentation. In many countries in the region, we are doing well when it comes to the backbone connectivity. Actually, in many cases, we have a duplication in backbone connectivity. Right now, the biggest challenge is in the last mile, especially fixed last mile. As an example, in Uganda, we have about 28 million wireless broadband connections versus about 30,000 fixed broadband connections. Now, the available technologies for last mile are quite expensive, especially in the rural areas. So I wanted to get the thoughts of Ben of the future of broadband over power line technology as a last mile solution, because we have more electricity connections than fixed broadband. So can we use these electricity connections for last mile? The second is, Ben, what do you think about local content as a strategy for reducing the cost of internet in the region? Thank you.
Kenya.
Thank you very much. Mine is an observation, and we also have an officer from the Ministry of ICT who also has a comment. Thank you. I would like to thank the presenter for the good presentation. Indeed, for some of us who are not ICT savvy, this is an eye-opener. And we see that we are making progress towards connecting Africa. For the Ministry of Transport in Kenya, we would like to inform the delegates that all major projects have a component on ICT. Since 2015, when we started implementing the South Sudan Link project, which we call the Eastern Africa Regional Transport Trade and Development Facilitation Project, we have a component on fiber optic cable. We are connecting a fiber optic cable from Eldoret all the way to the border with South Sudan. And this is a distance of about 615 kilometers. And this is a major component, noting that we are not even doing the entire, we are not financing the entire road, 615 kilometers of road through the credit from the World Bank. But we have noted that it is important to have that fiber so that we can connect with our neighbors. At the moment, we have already been able to rehabilitate the cable all the way up to Nadapal from Eldoret, and recently, actually last year, that cable was commissioned by the governor for Turkana, and we were able to do a fiber, a video call from Nadapal, something that has not happened in the past. Now, for the other roads, we have the Isiolo-Madera corridor, 740 kilometers. We have a component on fiber optic cable. It will be implemented so that we are able to connect with Ethiopia and Somalia. We also have part of the Great North Road from Cape Town to Cairo. The section from a place called Kenol up to Marwa about 85 kilometers, which is currently ongoing. And fiber optic cable is one of the components. So this is to show that indeed for all our major roads projects, Kenya is considering fiber optic cable as one of the major components. Thank you very much. I'll now hand over to my colleague from ICT Ministry.
Thank you, our presenter. Thank you for the presentation. The presentation was very well. I'm here to talk about the last mile connectivity to schools. The question is about the maintenance of these network cables, because phase 1 was done, but after phase 1 was finished, the problem that we had, the challenge, was about maintenance of those cables and the internet. This hindered the commencement of phase 2 of the same project, because after phase 1, some network cables, some spoiled because we lacked maintenance of this cable. So my question was about maintenance. Do you have such a, what do you do, what can you do about the maintenance of these cables after we have inputted them to the schools? Thank you.
Thank you, Kenya. So I would like Mr. Ben Roberts to respond to these issues before we go to the second phase of questions. And I note that Ethiopia was talking about integrated cloud infrastructure, about cyber security, and about capacity building, skills development to run this technology. Then Uganda talked about the broadbands and the last mile connections, and bringing the cost of internet down. Kenya then informed us about what they are doing when they are constructing other infrastructure like roads, to also give also the fiber optic to be provided along the roads. And also the issue of maintenance of infrastructure was mentioned. So over to you, Ben Roberts, to respond and to respond to the issues that were raised by Ethiopia, Uganda, and Kenya.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hans Hartley. I'm a colleague of Ben Roberts, working with Liquid Telecom since its inception, and have been in the region building fiber networks for close to the last 30 years. Thank you very much for the questions, and if you allow me to start with the three main questions first from the Ethiopia delegation. Regional cloud aspects. Now, obviously, this is one of the main aspects what we had been looking for, and I think partly it was also coming up in the presentation. Currently, at the data center, at our Africa data center in Nairobi, basically all major cloud companies and cloud players, let me say that way, including Netflix and others, are present with regional hubs, respectively with cache centers or otherwise. So that is already part of it, and is part of also the connectivity. So it is something which is not only Liquid Telecom are doing, but with the advancement of the regional infrastructure and the connectivity, this is something what is now, of course, attracting the players. So Microsoft, as an example, Microsoft
Microsoft, as an example, is in Nairobi with the Azure cloud database. Amazon has hubs in Nairobi. Netflix has a local presence. So all of this is already part of the current concept. Also, I would like to mention one thing, what came up in the presentation, and Ben mentioned it. Of course, there are always two aspects you're looking at when you have a cloud communication. Aspect number one is, what is the latency? What is my travel time of my data between the end user and the cloud? And you see, cloud is something what is not necessarily always directly within your immediate physical reach. It is so the world over. For example, the aspects in where high cloud concentrations are in the United States or also in Europe, it is not that you have to have a cloud, say, server directly next to you, but you have to have a very good and functional connectivity, and that is one of the major aspects. Now, when you have constrained aspects in terms of capacities, number one, when you have constrained aspects in terms of the routing, then of course a cloud experience or cloud usage is then not going very well. So two elements are there. Number one, with the advancement of the infrastructure, what we have provided, it has attracted at the moment most of the global cloud players into the region, into Nairobi for that matter. And to give you an example, in addition to what the presentation was showing, we have from Juba, for example, to the cloud center, if you so want, in Nairobi, a latency of 33 milliseconds, or let's say 40 milliseconds. Likewise, from Kampala is about 8 or 9 milliseconds. From Kigali is 12 or 15 milliseconds. So an experience, let's say, a Netflix user or a cloud user, a Microsoft Azure user in Juba will have the same experience of a proper functioning cloud service than it would be if the cloud server would actually physically sit in Juba. So let me term it, the globalization here is a new element of the regionalization, and that is a very important element to that. The second question was security. And yes, that is a very, very important aspect. Security, data security is a very important aspect in regards to protecting the users, protecting services. And in that regard, from a liquid telecom point of view, we do, first of all, we have a lot of security products which we are offering to clients. We have a lot of, we undertake a lot of data security presentations and others. So we are helping also our clients, and we provide for our clients security elements, always depending on what type of security and in what regard, in what depth of security it is needed. But maybe I would also like to mention something in that regard when it comes to security. We are always also very keenly interacting with the regional governments, with the regulators as such, to help to establish data security laws, because that is a very, very important aspect. Because we know that there will always be, for whatever reason, and you see that even in high secure data environments, there will be a breach. And when there is a breach, we need to see that there are legal means, and the regulatory framework and the legal framework is in place in order to follow that up, and then also bring respective culprits to court and produce respective records on that. Skills is definitely one of the major aspects, and I think it was slide number 5 or slide number 6 where we were saying the learners were left behind. So we have a very keen focus on not only providing connectivity to schools and enabling and actively supporting, therefore, also the ICT knowledge and providing that not only with practical demonstrations, but also helping and facilitating learning centers, ICT hubs, and others, whereby then we have a possibility to work together with regions, with counties, with cities, and with schools, of course, and universities. So I think it is a multifaceted approach in order to provide that, and this, of course, goes above and beyond what we possibly do in our own organization, whereby we have a very elaborate training program for our engineers, and making sure that active learning facilities are in place to update always to the latest technology. We also have Liquid Telecom Academy. This is internal and external. It's an internal and external facilitation, and is also helping and supporting the skill set building. But it's a very, very important aspect because we would very much promoting the aspect that this technology, as it comes in, will be for the people and with our people, together with the generation now building up that knowledge in order to operate that. The question from the gentleman of Uganda was last mile. Yes, I think last mile, and let me say that with a little bit of a background, when I was building up the Uganda network back in 96, 97, when we started Infocom and other operations there, last mile was always something which is a very important aspect, because as you rightfully say, the backbone is nothing without bringing the connectivity to the user, to the consumer ultimately. Now, the building up of the metropolitan network infrastructure in order to bring, let's say, fiber to the home, fiber broadband, has particularly in the last 2 or 3 years made a lot of advancement. And as part of Liquid Telecom, we are also very actively taking part of that. We have been rolling out in the last couple of months more than 700 fiber to the home connectivities within Kampala and also other cities, and that is a development which continues, and is also something what we are synchronizing together with the regulator and of course with other connectivities which are going synchronous with fiber broadband, for example. Upcountry is equally important. We have satellite connectivities, there are microwave connectivities, wireless connectivities are also still there, but of course ultimately fiber to the home, fiber broadband is something which is definitely the future to come. And particularly during the pandemic, especially in 2020, but also earlier 2021, we have seen a huge uptake, and we have been able to connect many more homes on broadband fiber. So it's a process which will continue and which we will be pushing, but also, of course, with the local regulator and with the local authorities. And one aspect came also in the presentation. It is always good if we are, or if the private sector, the telecom sector for that matter, is part of the planning infrastructure of ICT and telecom when new roads are being planned. So it's a very beneficial situation, and we have seen it, and it is not only a cost-saving aspect, but it's also a time-saving aspect. It's an enormous time-saving aspect, and you see, cost aspect is always something. If costs are lower to build an infrastructure, that goes immediately to the consumer with better prices, with better facilities, and with better services. on the Kenya delegation, I think there were two major aspects. Number one is certainly the very encouraging new build of network, fiber optic and network infrastructure now going towards the South Sudan border. And yes, and from a Liquid Telecom point of view, we've always been very engaged discussing that with the authorities, with the respective network or facility companies. So it is something which we as a private sector would always very happy be part of it, also in the beginning from a planning point of view. And yes, I mean from a connectivity point of view, and that was the because it referred to South Sudan, it was the easiest way from a connectivity point of view in 2019 to build the fiber cable from Elegu, Nimule across to Juba, which we have done. Actually, it was completed in early 2020, and since then. We have a lot of connectivities also in South Sudan. So, but correct, I mean, South Sudan needs more than just one connectivity. It's an important, very important aspect for resilience and for additional capacity. So as and when the planning of the additional cable comes and goes across the border on the Turid Road and then all the way to Juba, we have done plannings on that as well quite some time back. And the same is actually valid for Ethiopia. So Ethiopia is a large opportunity to have more than just the current connection, and that is something what we're also very keen to build that together with the respective authorities and helping and being part of the planning from the very beginning. And I think the last question was maintenance. Yes. As a network operator and been running fiber networks for the last 30 years for Liquid Telecom and before, maintenance is one of the major aspects. And why do we have 2 and 3 and sometimes 4 routes is because there are fiber interruptions, there are infrastructure interruptions. Now, infrastructure interruptions are always happening in 2 ways. There is an accidental damage because of road constructions, and of course we have along the major roads where the fiber networks are going a lot of activities, building side roads, building small ways off the main roads, and that of course is disturbing the cable. Now, and I think it's something which we have been discussing also with the regulators across the region. It is something which I've always been trying to see that we have also assistance from a regulatory point of view, because in many situations you can see that constructors are very eager to build up a road very fast. They are not always necessarily respecting the given way leaves, and possibly also digging deeper than they should be. Normally our fiber cables are always between 1.5 and 1.2 meters deep, but for some reason they're still being cut. So that is one of the aspects, is that road markings, as much as they are there, but we have seen in many ways that contractors are looking, unfortunately, first at their own goal and trying to see that they can achieve possibly a new road build as soon as they can, or as fast as they can for that matter. So my kind request would also be to the regulatory side to make sure that we have a legal framework in place, that we have support, because everybody is always concerned when a water pipe is being cut, and this, of course, water is very necessary and is a lifeline for the people living in their respective areas. But telecommunication infrastructure has become a lifeline, has become a modern facility without which we would not be able to do what we are doing in our modern society. So I'm always very thankful for invites from the regulatory side and also from other authorities in order to help us to bring regulatory frameworks in place where we can then base any situation on in terms of fiber cuts, and this is a very important aspect.
Thank you, Liquid Telecom, for that information and clarification on the issues raised by the member states. And I'll ask, do we have any more questions, interventions from the delegates before we close the session and hand over to the meeting closure? Any more intervention? I think seems there is no more issues from the delegates, so I hand over to Mr. Brazil to take us to the closing ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zakaria, for that, for moderating that particular session, the discussion. Thanks to Hans for stepping in when Ben Roberts had to step out to undertake another activity within the hotel. So thank you very much, Hans, for responding to the questions that came from the floor. So that brings us to the end of the plenary presentation and the discussion therein. And as we had indicated, we would now like to bring the closing ceremony earlier so that when we have lunch, then we can disperse. So allow me to call upon the Director of Economic Cooperation and Regional Integration at the Igad Secretariat, Dr. Osman Babikir, to join the podium. Dr. Osman, please come. Joining Dr. Osman are heads of delegations. We will go alphabetical as we always do. So Djibouti, if we have the PS, Abdul Razak Ahmed Idris, the PS from the Ministry of Finance and the Economy from Djibouti. We also have the State Minister, Honorable Abra Adunya. He comes from the Ministry of Water and Energy, the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. And then Kenya, our hosts, we have Mr. Daniel Tanui, who is a director in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Please take your seats. Abdul Razak, sit next to your flag. And also Honorable Abra Adunya from Water and Energy. Please sit next to your flag. Kenya, Mr. Daniel Tanui, if you can take, yes. And then from Somalia, we have Mr. Liban Mohammed from the Ministry of Transport and Civil Aviation. Please come to the podium. South Sudan, we have our Senior Minister, Honorable Agak Achuel, the Minister responsible for Finance and Planning, the Republic of South Sudan. And then from the Sudan, we have Ambassador Magdi Ahmed Mofadel, representing the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Republic of Sudan. Last but not the least, we have Uganda, represented by Mr. Gerald Akino, from the Ministry of Works and Transport. So, Gerald Akino, if you can please approach the podium. Our financials. Do we have African Development Bank? Africa Development Bank. Samata, if you can also join us on the podium, please. Uganda, right here next to me. Yeah. And then you can sit, yeah. There, I think it's for the South Sudan. You sit next to the, yeah. You can come here, Ivan. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. So South Sudan Minister, oh, he's right here. He's just consulting his team, so he will join Uganda. So I think, do we have Director Osman? Director Osman? Here he is coming. Please, just right there. Yeah. If Austin, could you please correct the flag for Sudan? Yeah, behind Dr. Osman, if it can be properly be upstanding. I wasn't good in mathematics in school, and it looks like it has followed me in to my 6th floor. Yeah, we are organizing. Yeah. So if we can just push so that we get the minister from South Sudan to join. Your Excellency, Honorable Agoka Chol, Agak. You know, it's a Luo name, and being a Bantu, Nilotic names tend to give me a challenge, but we are neighbors. Luyas and Luos are neighbors, but we are all good. All right? I think we have a full house, and this is really good, an indication of commitment. That the member states, together with our development partners, we are keen to take this master plan forward. Everybody wants to sit under their flag. South Sudan and Sudan. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So without further ado, let me call upon, first of all, our brother, PS Abdulrazak. You will speak from there so that we don't, we limit movement. So Abdulrazak, if you could, as we had indicated, if we could just, in a nutshell, indicate to us what are your general observations for the last 2.5 days, and moving forward in the context of the regional infrastructure master plan. How do you see us moving from here, based on the discussion that took place? Thank you. You have the floor. Yes. he will speak in French. So put the headphones for those who cannot follow that language. As soon as you switch on, it goes straight to English interpretation.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le modérateur, de me donner la parole. Je voudrais avant toute chose féliciter les secrétariats exécutifs de l'Igad pour l'excellente organisation durant ces 3 jours et l'excellent accueil que nous avons reçu, moi-même et ma délégation, durant ces 3 jours. Ça inaugure vraiment de bonnes choses. Pour ce qui est de l'appréciation durant ces 3 jours de discussion, je pense que ce sont des discussions qui ont été fructueuses, qui ont été franches, qui ont été ambitieuses, et ce sont des discussions qui aujourd'hui prouvent à quel point notre région est impliquée dans l'intégration, est impliquée dans le désir d'unir son destin, de sortir nos populations de la pauvreté pour vivre une prospérité dans une région qui regorge vraiment de richesses, autant en biens, en terre qu'en hommes. C'est vraiment une opportunité qui est intéressante. Je félicite l'Igad d'avoir une vision vraiment à long terme. À Djibouti, nous avons notre vision 2035 qui oriente tous nos plans toute notre planification en termes de développement. C'est une vision qui est divisée en 5 plans. Nous avons fini un premier plan qu'on a appelé SCAP. Nous venons d'entamer un nouveau plan que nous avons baptisé ici comme inclusion, connectivité, institution. Et nous retrouvons tous ces piliers systématiques dans le programme de développement des infrastructures aujourd'hui que l'Igad nous a présenté pour notre avenir. Je crois qu'il faudrait maintenant qu'on s'attelle à aller plus loin que 2035 et qu'on se projette déjà sur 2050. Mais je pense que vraiment toutes les propositions de projets, tous les piliers qui sont aujourd'hui dedans sont partie intégrante de la politique de développement de Djibouti. La République de Djibouti donne une importance capitale au processus d'intégration régionale. C'est vraiment essentiel pour nous. Étant les pays avec une position stratégique vraiment très importante, mais aussi un pays de petite taille, nous avons besoin d'ouvrir notre marché ou de nous externaliser pour pouvoir bénéficier de toutes les opportunités qu'offre la région. Pour ce faire, le pilier numéro 3 dont je parlais, qui est la connectivité, est un élément qui répond au processus d'intégration qui aujourd'hui est entamé. L'Igad a longtemps travaillé dans la sécheresse et la lutte contre les fléaux. Aujourd'hui, j'accueille vraiment cette nouvelle politique qui est d'intégrer économiquement et commercialement toute la région à travers un processus de facilitation, à travers un processus d'harmonisation de procédures commerciales et des échanges, à travers un processus de promotion de l'industrialisation, à travers la construction d'infrastructures qui sont aujourd'hui de dimension régionale. On ne peut plus aujourd'hui faire des infrastructures que pour son propre pays. On doit aujourd'hui faire des infrastructures et investir pour servir toute la région. Parce que c'est l'avenir. Parce que c'est la seule chose que nous devons faire pour pouvoir sortir notre région et même tout notre continent de la pauvreté. Donc nous accueillons vraiment ces programmes avec une grande joie. nous pensons que c'est vraiment quelque chose qui va beaucoup appuyer nos pays, qui va nous permettre de nous rapprocher. Nous sommes aujourd'hui dans une situation un peu difficile dans la Corne de l'Afrique, et dans l'Afrique de l'Est, et je pense que c'est cette aura ou ce désir d'un avenir commun, d'avoir des infrastructures pour réaliser cet avenir commun, est quelque chose que, au niveau de Djibouti, nous accueillons ça très favorablement et que nous encourageons à aller l'Igad dans ce sens-là. L'Igad maintenant doit être l'institution qui doit nouer, qui doit rapprocher tous ces pays partenaires, tous ces pays qui, peut-être chacun de son côté pense se développer, mais l'union fait la force. Et plus que jamais aujourd'hui, nous avons besoin d'union. Et pour capitaliser sur cette union, nous avons besoin justement d'infrastructures de qualité, qui soient pérennes et qui soient utilisées de façon efficace. Et j'accueille vraiment favorablement la politique aujourd'hui de l'Igad, qui est vraiment de s'investir et de se placer en tant que leader ou en tant que catalyseur de ce processus d'intégration régionale via le développement des infrastructures capitaux pour nos développements, des infrastructures régionaux, aussi bien dans le secteur du transport que dans le secteur de l'énergie et que dans le secteur du digital dont on parlait il y a pas longtemps. Mais nous devons aussi développer une politique commune, une vision commune du développement. C'est pas normal qu'on ait des façons de penser différentes en fonction des pays. Nous devons avoir une même vision politique qui nous permette de pouvoir réaliser ces activités, et nous devons plus investir aussi sur notre regional community qui est l'Igad, pour être le porteur ou le porte-flambeau de cette nouvelle politique et de cette nouvelle vision que nous voulons avoir. Nous sommes en période de crise, mais il paraît que les Chinois dessinent avec leur idéogramme le terme crise par récession et opportunité en même temps. Donc on est certes dans une période difficile, mais c'est aussi une période qui peut être opportune pour tous les pays de la Corne de l'Afrique et de l'Afrique de l'Est en général, et l'Igad en l'occurrence, pour pouvoir vraiment capitaliser et construire l'avenir que nous voulons avoir en 2050. Nous ne parlons pas d'aujourd'hui, de 2021, nous parlons de 2050. Et 2050, nous avons la possibilité de pouvoir avoir l'avenir que nous voulons avoir. Et je pense qu'aujourd'hui, nous avons un document où nous avons un leadership, nous avons des façons de penser des personnes qui travaillent aujourd'hui au sein de l'Igad pour pouvoir nous porter vers cet idéal ou vers cet avenir. À nous, pays membres de cette organisation, de pouvoir maintenant l'adosser, de pouvoir le porter, de pouvoir appuyer l'Igad pour que ces rêves puissent se réaliser dans les décennies à venir. Je vous remercie de votre attention.
Same questions are posed to our state minister from Ethiopia. So basically just to, again, give you a general observation for the last 2.5 days and moving forward in the context of the regional master plan. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, moderators, honorable ministers, excellencies, head of delegates, and development partners, private sector and financial institutions, and gentlemen and ladies. I think it is a great pleasure and honor to be here representing my country, Ethiopia. And I really appreciate the Igad for this, giving us this occasion to discuss on with member states and development partners. I also thank the government of Kenya, especially for the Foreign Affairs, for hosting us and facilitating this forum. Thank you for all. Saying this, I really want to appreciate the meeting that is provided to us from Igad, that is interconnecting all member states for regional integrations and trade competitiveness. This is a great opportunity to us for foreign investment areas, and as well as for integration and harmonization of all African countries. So I really appreciate the meeting. Of course, it's also backed by the Development Partners Forum that will give us a great opportunity to discuss our issues, our African issues, our Igad members' issues within the development partners, and our stakeholders, financial institutions. I think I observed for the last 3 days, it was a very fruitful discussions. The moderators, the presenters, and even the program leaders, they give us very perfect and very fruitful discussions. And all our concerns have been on table, and we have discussed on the plenary sessions as well as on the breakout sessions. I also observed that the meeting gives more time for business-to-business area. It's a very sufficient times. This gives us to discuss with our development partners, our financial institutions, and even the private sectors, how they be a part of for our development areas. So this is a good time to give for business-to-business areas. The other thing, it was very good, very a good opportunity to us to discuss with our member states, especially on transboundary areas, transboundary resources, transport, and other issues. I have a bit comment on the meeting, because as we have discussed on the area, we are discussing with transport, ICT, transboundary issues, but still all the issues are not managed equally. I observed that, I was expecting for transport, energy, and transboundary issues, ICT needs to be integrated for all sectors. So a bit time is given for ICT. Of course, today, I thank you to the Liquid Intelligent Technology. They will give us a very brief presentations how we use ICT for our developments. But my observation for the last 2 days, it needs to be integrated with transport. It needs to be integrated with transboundary issues. It needs to be integrated with energy sectors. So I have observed it's not managed equally with other sectors. And the other observation is, in the Igad Secretariat, yesterday I have seen the presentation from PDAPAP. Of course, it is a program of continental program for Africa, but still I didn't see very critical roles of Igad in the PDAPAP 2 projects. So this is my observation from the last 3 days. Saying this, I have now some recommendations and the way forward for the next phases. I think it will be good to consider the upcoming digital economy. We are now working on the digital economy. For this, we have to work on, give focus on the development of sustainable ICT infrastructures that should be needed, that would needed to be incorporated for the next member state discussion on development. Second, even if the future ICT infrastructure is gearing towards, a cloud infrastructure, it's already presented today. We need to have to work on establishment of regional cloud infrastructures that can be shared easily and managed by the member states. to be cost effective and efficiently utilize these resources. Just third, on ITC, I observed that, we have to work on integrated cyber security, because one of the priority area for Igad is peace and security, in addition to food security and environmental protection and integration. So we need to work on this cyber security infrastructure to mitigate, the potential of cyber threat together with all member states. So this will be needed to be incorporated in future for our discussions. The other, on the energy sectors, it's good to be treated very well, but still I have an observation on the energy sectors. My country, Ethiopia, have huge energy potential, and we have tried to connect our brothers and sisters with Kenya, Djibouti, Somalia, and in the near future to Tanzania, out of the Igad regions. But still, this energy sector needs a reform. It needs a reform, power sector reform, as well as this sector needs financial means. Of course, we are exporting energy to our brothers and sisters, but the government, suffers in exporting those energy. My observation on the energy sector is, it will be good, to have a private sectors to involve in the energy sectors. To involve the private sectors, we need to work on the cost of the electricity, and even a system that the private sectors easily support the member states. That is, we have also the PPP package. Yesterday, we have already discussed the PPP approach, but still for the PPP approach, we need to have a framework and mobilizing for private investors to mobilize and create competitive market. It's good to have, working on power pricing across all the regions. So this also will be my observation, how to invest, how to, the private sectors will be invest on the energy area. The other, I have also observed on the transport area. We have discussed the issue, but still we need standardization on the transport sections. Yesterday, or the day before yesterday, the African Development Bank, raised issues related with the driving style of Ethiopia and Kenya. But I think it will be good, those experts and specialists in the area to sit together and to standardize the road area. So this will be one of the observations from the presentations. The other, if you allow me, the moderators, I have also issues on the transboundary part. The transboundary issue, it's raised by Kenya and Somalia. We have a Dawa River Basin, multipurpose river basin project. My country, Ethiopia, want to work with our brothers and sisters, with Somalia and Ethiopia. But still, we have a lot of concerns on the Dawa area. As you know, you might have heard the Dawa, upstream of Dawa, the Borona peoples, they are suffering from droughts. They know before a week, more than 70,000 animals have died due to drought. So we want to use these resources for our regions. But the problem on the concern on the Dawa side is, even if it is a pre-feasibility stage, the Kenyans designed the dam with 4.5 billion meter cube of water, which means a 5-year average flow of the Dawa River. The average Dawa River flow is 1.38. So the dam that will be constructed by or initiated by the Kenyan brothers is, 4.5, which is more than the 4 times yield of the area. So this needs, the attention of the Igad regions and other member states As in Ethiopia, we don't have any issues. We want to use these resources among us in equitable way, but we don't want to create any significant harm to the downstream countries. And at the same time, we don't want to also create significant harm in our sides. It forecloses the development of Ethiopia. If you do construct 90-meter height of dam, which harvests 4 times the flow of the Dawa River. So my recommendation is, the Igad and my brothers, Kenya and Somalia, it will be good to give these 4 specialists and those skilled persons to work on the water balance, as well as the equal utilization of these resources among the 3 countries. In a similar way, we don't have any concern on the bridge that is raised today on the Dawa River, but we want to see the whole package with the dam, how we construct the road as well as the dam based on the responses of our specialists. And the other projects that I want to raise to the Igad, I want to raise issues to the Igad and member states. That is a project which will be constructed on big-made project on transport. Of course, yesterday we have informed that the PIDA will have a week, next week, December 6 up to 10. We will raise our concerns on that, but to be on board the IGA Secretariat and our member states, the big-made project, it's a project, a transport project between Lake Victoria and the Mediterranean. It is initiated by the most downstream country, Egypt. And even the project management is managed by the downstream country, Egypt. Ethiopia has a concern and joined the big-made project in 2017. And we have a lot of issues, concerns on that, because it is not a transport project. It is a nexus transport as well as water project. The success of big-made projects mainly relies on the release of water from upstream countries. To transport, to pass the boat from A to B, it needs a minimum water level. That minimum water level, forecloses the development of upstream country. So our concern is, we appreciate, the integration of African peoples. We also appreciate, the transport design, but still, we should have to also look, the future development of Ethiopia and the other upstream countries that releases more water from the transport side. So this also, our concern is, to discuss the issue based on the expert knowledge. Instead of politically decide the transport, it's better to give for experts to bring us, the water balance and the minimum water level requirement for the transport issues. The other issue as IGAD priority area is, food security and environmental protections. This is one of the priority area for IGAD, but the big-made project passes through the world-class wetland, Sud wetland. So the hydrology of the Sud wetland is not known. It's difficult to understand even for the time being. So it crosses the well-known Sud wetland. That means it drains or extracts water from the well-known wetland. So this also have a concern in Ethiopian side for the Sud basins. So to make it, to conclude my remarks on this, it is good to give chance for experts to involve, specialists on the area to use our resources and to integrate member states and Africa for this economic development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Abra Adunya. Next is a representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Kenya, Mr. Daniel Tanui. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Honorable Ministers, Your Excellencies, Heads of Delegations, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor and a privilege for me to join you at this closing ceremony of the Igad Regional Infrastructure Development Partners Roundtable Conference. I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to thank you most sincerely for your contributions during these 3 days of intense deliberations on regional infrastructure. I believe that during this time, important milestones have been arrived at in regard to improving, strengthening, and enhancing infrastructure in the Igad region. As remarked by the representative of the Cabinet Secretary on Tuesday, during her opening remarks, the region faces serious challenges in regard to infrastructure development. The Igad Master Plan 2020, therefore, is a unique regional initiative and will go a long way in strengthening the regional integration. Though the region faces immense challenges, the goal to integrate and enhance development remains the desire of the heads of states and government of the Igad region. This initiative, therefore, aims to reduce isolationism and bring the objective of integration closer home. The presence of all member states in this conference portrays the importance infrastructure plays in development. I therefore want to thank you all for your participation during these 3 days of conference. On behalf of the government of Kenya, and especially the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I want to again thank you for your attendance, and I want to say that don't leave before you visit some of our scenic places in Nairobi. We have a national park very near here, so don't leave before you visit these places. Visit some of our best restaurants, internationally renowned restaurants, and sample our nyama choma. I thank you all.
Thank you very much, Director Tanui. And I will jump the two gentlemen so that I can exhaust with the member states. And the next speaker will be the representative from the Federal Republic of Somalia, from the Ministry of Transport and Civil Aviation, Mr. Liban Mohammed. You have the floor, sir.
Hello, everyone. You gave a millennial the center seat. It's not a good idea. I have a lot to say, but I have to be very diplomatic. So, so thank you all. I want to take this opportunity to thank Igad and their team for putting together this agenda. I hope we can use this, these discussions, roundtable, to learn from one another. So our infrastructure systems can remain resilient against the many stressors and shocks we all face in our respective countries. More importantly, learn from each other regarding our infrastructure systems to support the developments mentioned within the Igad Regional Master Plan. I was told to speak specific to the themes. I didn't know we had to get into the detail of the challenges our specific country faces. An example, this morning there was an attack on a UN convoy this morning in Somalia, which 5+ people lost their lives and many injured. And of course, yesterday our Prime Minister tweeted a humanitarian crisis with the drought. Over 115,000 people have been displaced. So, this is a great opportunity for us to learn from one another. And my fellow colleague from Djibouti spoke about unity, and it is very important at this time, to address this and collectively come together. And one of the themes, of course, we spoke about was trade as well, infrastructure systems, integrated systems, regional integration. But I wanted to speak to trade, and we know trade will be critical for our economies, and that trade will have shifted significantly to Europe, Asia, Middle East, and other developing countries. Presently in Somalia, we're dependent on imports of basic commodities for consumption. This results in a high trade deficit, almost 80%, and that is a statistic, don't quote me on it, but from 2018, 2019. The costly infrastructure in Somalia has constrained its growth from a variety of perspectives, including limiting inclusion between landlocked and coastal areas, between rural and urban areas, and between the rest of the Horn of Africa. For Somalis to flourish, we need to be able to get Somali products, services, people to central markets. We need modern infrastructure systems and economical quality, with economical quality services. And we must have access to innovative gateways with logistics and integrated infrastructure. In reviewing last night the Igad regional master plan, and in discussing with my colleagues, and I apologize, our state minister is not here, but we did have a discussion regarding the master plan last night, and we of Somalis have just one thing to say, and it is that we support it. Somalis are interested in investing in our infrastructure and trade corridors in the coming years to safeguard our goods and resources, excuse me, so our resources can move more efficiently within Somalia into the global markets. Our future success as a country relies on our ability to compete in the world and create jobs. As I said, giving a millennial the center seat, I have a lot to say. 70% of Somalians are youth, right? And being amongst them, or being a returnee and living in Somalia now, I spend a lot of time and speaking to them, and of course trying to understand not only the challenges that we all spoke about today, and we heard from many others, but to understand the future generation. COP26 just recently ended on the climate talks about future generations. You saw many young people protest on the many infrastructure systems and proposals, programs that are being proposed worldwide, globally, in the West, and now here in Africa. So environment should be number one component to everything that we are discussing here for the purpose of future generations, right? So by investing in our trade corridors in Somalia, we are investing in our future, right? And to conclude, I'm not going to repeat the many other recommendations that was given by my colleagues here, but I just have one recommendation, and of course, that is to engage with Somalis on these activities and programs. I got an invitation email a week before this roundtable discussion. I didn't have an opportunity, my colleagues didn't have an opportunity to present on Somali activities and programs and project pipelines. So one thing I recommend is that if you are interested in hearing about Somali's activities, programs, projects, or initiatives, to engage with us directly. Contact the right person, the right ministry, and make sure that you are getting the right information. The many problems I faced as an advisor to the minister is that infrastructure is being discussed in other ministries when they should be discussed at our ministry. And this is a concern to many other African countries that are here being represented, because there's always a conflict of mandates and responsibilities that we constantly go back and forth on. It's not rocket science, right? So if you're interested in engaging with Somalis, if you don't have the contacts, I'm here. You can see me outside. I'll be happy to connect you to the right people. I have no interest or motives, right? The interest is what we discussed here, regional integration. So speaking to the right ministries, speaking to the right delegates, right staff, should be a recommendation I have for Igad and the many development partners and the private sectors that are here today. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Brother Liban. And indeed, being the youngest on the podium, you really represented the largest, the majority of our people in the region. And thank you for all that you've said, complementing what the earlier speakers had also indicated. So without further ado, I want to go to our senior Minister for Finance and Planning, from the youngest, well, maybe they've grown older now. We used to say the youngest member of the Igad family, but I think they've come of age now. The Republic of South Sudan, Honorable Agak Achuel. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Your Excellencies, ministers from Igad region, Your Excellencies, the other dignitaries which are here have been invited to attend this forum. I take all the protocol observed. First and foremost, I would like to thank the Igad for taking the lead in coming up with this important initiative that brought us together here in Nairobi. I also have a chance to thank His Excellency, our big brother Raila Amolo Odinga, for his very elaborated presentation and remarks. I also thanked all the presenters for their very good presentation. The moderators did very good work, I mean to say. I also thank the organizers for their efforts in making this event as a success. The following opening session, the presentation, the roundtable discussions, the breakaway session, and all went well. I also would like to take this opportunity also to thank the host country, which is the Kenyan, our brothers, and the hospitality they extended to us, and the welcoming they did to us. So I appreciate that. On behalf of my colleagues, I thank you a lot for having done that big job to welcome us in this occasion. All the issues discussed in this conference are very important for all our region, and especially my country, South Sudan, which is said to be a young country, although I think a young country which got broken away from an old country, it still have some old image of the old Sudan. So we are young, but the people in South Sudan are not young. Yes, we have youth, which are around 70%, but I hope we are taking baby steps, and we shall catch up. Ladies and gentlemen, the youngest country, which is South Sudan, is very much left behind in terms of development. As well as it was said by Honorable Raila in his speech, that the region is experiencing fundamental challenges, and that these challenges can be put to an end through infrastructure development and regional integration, through roads, network, and transport. And if we could do this in a short time, I think we can see the difference. We have already seen the difference of the railway from Mombasa to Nairobi. We have seen the difference on development of the railroad from Djibouti to Addis. We have seen a big difference there. So this development, if we continue with all these kind of infrastructure in our whole region, I think the development will catch up. There is no quick fix. The whole idea is that to implement and do the right thing. Otherwise, the Asian countries were in the same situation where we are now. But they are picked up and they are moving very fast because they are doing the right thing. So if we do the same, we pick up and do the right thing, then our region will move to the further level. Development through infrastructure and regional integration through trade, as already mentioned by other countries, and to reduce the poverty and eradication needs us to do a lot of work on roads, infrastructures, villages. As in my country, we have already embarked on regional and interstate road network, but we are implementing peace. As long as we are implementing peace, we are also on the other side working on development and infrastructures of the roads. As soon as we achieve the stability and peace, the development will start, and I hope we shall be connected with our neighbors through roads and rails and air. Ladies and gentlemen, the good thing which will go away with me here is that the good ideas which I had, especially the issues concerning the rail, roads, the bridges, the infrastructures which are really useful to the population, which can connect us such that we can trade among ourselves, are good things which I can take away from here. I'm already dreaming of a railroad between Juba and Addis. It is impossible because there are a lot of things going on in my country, but the dream will never die, because if we are connected with Addis, that will favor our way to Djibouti port. If we are connected with Nairobi, that will pave our way to Mombasa port. If we are connected with Uganda, it will also pave our way through Uganda to Tanzania, and will also open a way. If we are connected with DRC, it will also open a way to Atlantic Ocean. And if we are connected with our brother in the north, which is Sudan, it will open a way to Port Sudan. And by having those dreams in our minds, we believe that all these connections will make us trade for peace among ourselves. And when we trade for peace among ourselves, it builds on the opportunity of the youth. They will find jobs to do. They will not engage in conflict. And the prosperity will spring up from there. Because, you see, when there is peace, there is development. But if there is conflict, the development is really bogged down. Or we destroy the development and then we start over from nowhere. And starting over from nowhere is not going to take us anywhere, because you can destroy a bridge which has been built for almost 1 year or 3 years. And you can destroy that bridge with a conflict in about half an hour. And it will take you another 5 years or 10 years to rebuild it. So we choose peace, especially in our young country. We are implementing peace now. And we believe with this peace, we will start on our road network to connect the states within Southern Sudan. And if we connect the states, then automatically we are connected with our neighbors. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe the only thing I can take away from here are the few things I have just said, and I believe that if we do the right thing and implement the right ideas, we will get out of this poverty. Never mind, Africa was divided in Europe 1881. And if we sit and do nothing now, you have seen the change of the climate. You have seen the change of the climate. You have seen the drought. You have seen the floods. If all these countries which are very near to the ocean are drowned, don't forget, your African highlands will be divided again in Europe or in Washington. So the best thing is for us to work very hard, fix our problems, and be alert that the world is moving, and we should move with the world together. Ladies and gentlemen, I will stop here, and I thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for those wise words and sentiments that echo the sentiments that were made, or the statements that were made during the official opening, and I think they also reflect the discussion that took place in the last 2.5 days. Without further ado, I want to call upon Ambassador Magdi to make his statement. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Honorable Minister Chol, Honorable State Minister from the Sister Republic of Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, members of the delegations, our partners from the development partners, the media, the private sector, and also our sisters and brothers in Igad Secretariat. I would like to start by thanking the people and government of the Republic of Kenya for the hospitality, for hosting us, and for the hospitality according to all delegations since the arrival here in Nairobi. Also, I would like to thank our sisters and brothers in the Igad Secretariat for a job well done in preparing for this very important roundtable discussions. I would like also to thank all the presenters and the members of the Secretariat and the facilitators for their very insightful presentations, and also would like to thank the staff and management for Crown Plaza Hotel for the best services that they have presented to us, which made this event very successful. If I try to to speak about my observations and takeaway, I think I'm going to divide them in two parts. First one is going to be regarding the region, and then the second part is going to be connected with what we think we can try to do at the national level. But before that, I also would like to thank for this opportunity, because for me personally, this was very important, because I have been serving here in Kenya from 2007 to 2011 at Sudan Embassy in Nairobi. And so this was a very good opportunity for me to come and to see my old friends here in Kenya, and also to see what is going on. But I would like to assure you that I have been impressed by what I have been seen here in Kenya, especially regarding the infrastructure development here in Nairobi, and also 3 months ago I was in Mombasa. You have done a lot, and I would like to congratulate you on what you have achieved. I hope that we in the other Igad countries will be able to catch up with what you have done in a very limited short of time. My last visit to Nairobi was in December 2012. But in these 9 years, I can say that a lot have been changed, and we hope that we will keep it up. My first observation is that in these 3 days, I saw that there is some sort, I felt that there is some sort of concentration on some countries more than others. We hope that in the next in the next events and functions, we will be able to give some sort of equal opportunities for all countries in Igad region, in order for all of us to feel that we are the same and we are equals and we are partners and we are sisters and brothers. This is the first observation. The second one is I also observed that the Igad regional, infrastructure master plan is over ambitious compared with the actual situation currently in Igad region. Our region is, unfortunately, is infested with a lot of, is faced with so many challenges. Chief among them, we have a problem of, chronic problem of peace and stability. In at least, currently we have it in 4 out of the 7 Igad countries. We have a challenge of economic instability in some countries. We have a challenge of the challenge of COVID-19 on the impact of COVID-19 on our economies. We have the economies, the challenge of drought, desertification, and desert locust. We have also other challenges regarding the human resources in some of our countries. So when we look to, when you take all these challenges together and compare it with the actual resources that are needed for the implementation of the master plan, I get the feeling that the plan is over ambitious. And if we say that if there is a infrastructure funding gap in Africa, in Igad we can say that there is infrastructure funding gulf. It is not a gap at all. Yeah, so this is a big challenge for all of us. So I think that we have to, in the next couple of months and years, we have to concentrate on this issue, on how to fund this, how to try to address this very crucial issue. We in the member states, in the Igad Secretariat, with our development partners, with our partners in the region, and from far away, we have to try to be very creative in trying to sort out this very difficult issue. Without addressing this funding gulf, we will not be in a position to properly implement this ambitious master plan. The third point in this respect also is when we come to the implementation of the master plan, and also when we come to, we have to take into consideration the particularities of each and every country of us. We are in the same organization. We are all members, but there is a huge disparity among the Igad countries. So when we come to implement this master plan, and also to design other future plans, we have to take into consideration the particularities of each and every country, and to try to, because I think that there is no one size that fits all. We have to look to design solutions according to the particularities, to the conditions of each country. The last point in this part is respect to the fact that now we have we have received, in the last decade we have seen there is emergence of some sort of cooperation, and sometimes interventions, sometimes concern from the countries of the Gulf. I think that it provides opportunity for us to try to help us in addressing this issue of funding for our infrastructure master plan, but at the same time also it raises some challenge. We need to put our hands together, to work together in this respect, and to see how can we work together in order to channel that, interest from the Gulf countries into a positive outcome for Igad region. At the national level, I think first we are intending to plan some sort of a national workshop in which we are going to bring all the stakeholders from the different government institutions that involved in infrastructure, the private sector, the media, the academia, and the civil society, in order to first to raise awareness among all of us about the huge opportunities and at the same time the challenge that we are facing regarding infrastructure interconnectivity between Sudan and Igad, and also with other member countries, other neighboring countries. This is one. Also to enhance coordination among the different institutions or among all the stakeholders. We don't want to, we want to try to overcome this silo mentality. Also, we want also to see, when we come together, we are going to see what are the opportunities and what are the challenges and how to overcome them. So this is going to be one of the main activities. We hope that we will be able to achieve it in the first quarter of next year, and we look forward to work with Igad Secretariat and other partners to make that national consultation a successful event. The second thing also, we will recommend that we are going to concentrate on the issue of capacity building, because we think that due to some political reasons dealing with the Sudan relations with some members of the international community during the previous regime, we have been left behind in the issue of in our human resources. So we need to concentrate on that one, and also we'll try to cooperate with Igad Secretariat and with other member countries on this issue of capacity building. And also we would like also our people in the different infrastructure sectors to learn from the best practices and from other experience in Igad region. At the strategic level, or at the what we can call it the long-term plan, we want to concentrate on the opportunities that have been created by the fact that now the center of gravity of African trade has moved from the countries of the north to the countries of Asia, especially the Asian giants, China, India, Japan, South Korea, and also to some countries of the Middle East. We think that we are situated strategically in Africa, and we would like to concentrate on that one and to try to build a bridge between the Red Sea and the Atlantic Ocean. We have a project called Port Sudan Dakar Road, which has been sanctioned by the OIC organizations, but we will see others. So this is one of the areas in which we are going to concentrate regarding infrastructure and interconnectivity. In this respect also, we will try to do our best to connect with other neighboring countries. Now we have three neighbors from Igad, that is South Sudan, Ethiopia, and Eritrea. But also we have 4 other neighbors who are belonging to other regional blocks. So we also want to connect with them. We want to connect with Chad and Central African Republic, which are part of members of CIMAC, and through them to go to ECOWAS to Nigeria. Also, we would like to connect with Libya in the northeast, and from Libya to other countries of the Arab Maghreb Union. Also, we would like to connect with Egypt in the north and other countries of the Middle East. So this is one of these are the main issues we are and the more the most important things we are thinking about and we are planning to concentrate on. I conclude by thanking you for your attention and also renewing my thanks and appreciation to Igad Secretariat for all they have done, and also for our host, the government and people of Kenya. And I wish each and every one of you a safe travel home. Shukran jazila.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Magdi. And as we say in Kiswahili, karibu nyumbani, welcome back home. Being the representative of the Igad chair, I was held back to give you as much latitude as possible so that you can capture those two responsibilities, speaking on behalf of the Republic of Sudan, but also as the chair of Igad. Thank you very much, sir. So last on my list in terms of member states, it's the Pearl of Africa. I want to call upon Gerald Aquino to speak on behalf of the Republic of Uganda. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair. Honorable Ministers present, Your Excellencies, development partners, member states, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. You will believe with me that if you are the last speaker and it is tending towards lunch, you virtually have very little to talk about, because they have already talked about all your points almost. So this is the most difficult time for you to deliver your speech. However, I want to recognize the presence of my colleagues here from Uganda. Please wave your hands. Yes, I represent here their views, and I am happy, personally, and delighted to be here to witness the birth of this master plan. It is a living document which has taken years to prepare it, develop it, and in the last 3 days, we have been here witnessing the birth of this master plan. I want to join others in thanking the Igad Secretariat for bringing us together in this round table, development partners, to engage in advancing infrastructure development in the Igad region. Thank you very much, Secretariat. It was not easy to coordinate this master plan. Sometimes resources would dry up, and sometimes we had the impact of COVID. There were nowhere to meet. All these challenges came in, but nevertheless, you persisted and carried on, and today we have the master plan, which is going to guide development of infrastructure in the Igad region. So, my appreciation on behalf of Uganda. I also appreciate the host country, Kenya, for hosting us, not once, during the preparation of this master plan, but a couple of times. We have also been hosted elsewhere, but particularly here. Appreciate partner states for their commitment in developing this master plan. I must say that all partner states have participated. Technical officials, the steering committee, all those structures were available to make sure that the master plan that we come up with is comprehensive and is able to address the infrastructure gaps in the Igad region. So thank you very much. I appreciate all the development partners, but in particular, African Development Bank, because they have been behind the funding of this infrastructure master plan. In our general observations, this master plan is comprehensive enough, covering key flagship projects in transport, energy, water, and ICT. Once implemented, this master plan will transform the region, at large Africa. Now, once you have celebrated the birth of a child, that is not the end. It is the beginning of your journey to raise up that child until his destiny is secured. This master plan today that has been birthed, we have a very great role to play to see that we realize the vision. We realize what the objective, the overall goal for this master plan is. And I want to call upon Igad that you still have a very big role to play in the implementation and resource mobilization to ensure that, and even monitoring of this master plan, to ensure that we realize the overall goal and the aim of the master plan. As Uganda, we want to commit to the mobilization of resources to ensure that the projects that are here are implemented, and overall to make the great contribution to the region through this master plan. We are also sure that Uganda-South Sudan power interconnector, once implemented, will make a very big contribution to the regional power trade. This project is among the flagship projects in this master plan. And similarly, linking of the SGR between Uganda, Kenya, and South Sudan will go a long way to facilitate trade and integration. I want to also join our voice in congratulating Kenya in the progress that has been made of the implementation of the standard gauge railway line. When we heard from the presentation of what is happening and the turnaround times, how they have reduced, and how they are working hard to make sure that even the meter gauge railway is revamped and performs efficiently, it was something that is very great to hear, and motivated us to think. And I must say that we asked Kenya and said, please, your success is our success in Uganda. The day you will reach Malaba is the day of our great joy, because we cannot develop the standard gauge railway without a link to Kenya. So we are anxiously waiting for you to reach Malaba. We are anxiously and praying that whatever you do, please succeed, so that we can succeed and that South Sudan can also succeed. We appreciate consideration of our Angololo multipurpose water resources project between Uganda and Kenya. After implementation of this project, border communities will benefit from water for agricultural purposes, hence increasing small-scale agricultural production and livelihoods of the border communities between Uganda and Kenya. This project is very key. If you are at the border and you see the kind of suffering those people are going through because of clean water and even water for their crops and agriculture, you will realize that this project is a flagship project in that area. In conclusion, again, I want very much to appreciate all of you for your participation and for coming up and joining us. I must say us, because we have been with the Igad Secretariat in the preparation and development of this master plan. Thank you very much for coming. This master plan will now be an addition to our planning framework in terms of infrastructure delivery. So it adds to the rest of the master plans, the Northern Economic Corridor. This one now will work on the Djibouti corridor. And then others, we have other corridors also with their various master plans. So I very much appreciate, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Gerald Ekino, for those sentiments, and we appreciate the presence of Uganda as a founding member of Igad in this particular forum. So without further ado, I want to call upon Mr. Samata Omar Elmi from Africa Development Bank, the head office in Abidjan, to make his remarks on behalf of AFDB. You have the floor, sir.
Okay, for the sake of maybe language balance, I will shift to French, if possible.
So we have another French speaker, which is very good, because then we solidify the fact that we are indeed bilingual. So just a few minutes as you put on your headset, you just switch it on and it will go automatically to English. Thank you. Go ahead.
Ok, merci beaucoup. D'abord, je souhaiterais profiter de cette occasion pour remercier d'abord le bonjour en fait à tous les membres qui sont ici présents à ce podium, Son Excellence Monsieur le Ministre des Finances de la République sud-soudanaise, les autres représentants des différents pays de l'Igad. Tout d'abord, je souhaiterais dire que la Banque africaine de développement est très honorée d'avoir financé ce plan directeur, qui est un plan directeur très important parce que pour financer des projets, nous avons besoin de nous adosser à un cadre institutionnel et stratégique existant. Donc c'est ça le point de départ des investissements qu'un bailleur tel que la banque ou les autres bailleurs d'ailleurs interviennent. Donc ce plan directeur donne la direction à suivre. Il donne aussi un certain nombre de projets prioritaires dans les différents secteurs tels que l'eau, les transports, l'énergie, le digital. Et maintenant, ce que je souhaiterais dire, c'est que c'est quoi l'étape suivante en tant que bailleur et du point de vue d'un bailleur qui est intéressé d'appuyer les pays membres, ces pays membres qui sont tous les pays africains, mais aussi les différentes communautés économiques régionales telles que l'Igad. Alors, l'étape suivante, c'est de partir sur ce plan directeur, sélectionner un certain nombre de projets prioritaires, réaliser les études de faisabilité et ensuite mobiliser les ressources pour leur réalisation. Alors, les études de faisabilité, en règle générale, nous les finançons à travers différents mécanismes. Et en règle générale, c'est des subventions qui sont apportées soit à travers les États qui font la demande, soit à travers les structures régionales dans le cadre de projets régionaux. Donc, peu importe le temps que le développement de ce plan directeur a pris, ce que je souhaiterais souligner ici, c'est qu'une étude de faisabilité, quand elle se réalise, on n'a pas forcément les mêmes délais que l'élaboration d'une stratégie, parce qu'une étude de faisabilité peut très vite être outdated, en fait, peut se retrouver dans une situation où il faut, au bout d'un certain temps, chercher des fonds pour essayer de la mettre à niveau ou la mettre à jour. Donc, il nous faut éviter cette contrainte. Et donc, aujourd'hui, nous avons un plan qui est là. Et la recommandation de la banque, c'est que nous travaillons ensemble, entre les pays, les organisations internationales, telles que la Banque africaine de développement, le secteur privé. C'est très important. Aujourd'hui, les besoins en termes d'infrastructures optiques, par exemple, se chiffrent à 250 000 km de fibres en Afrique. C'est proprement énorme. Et les ressources publiques qui sont disponibles aujourd'hui ne peuvent pas, à elles seules, financer ces besoins colossaux. Et c'est la même chose. Avant-hier, le haut représentant sur les infrastructures de l'Union africaine, son Excellence Raila Odinga, a déroulé un certain nombre d'indicateurs qui, dans les autres secteurs aussi, indiquent combien les besoins sont énormes. Et donc, d'où l'intérêt de monter des partenariats publics-privés avec le secteur privé et travailler de telle sorte qu'on puisse mettre en place des partenariats publics-privés qui soient équilibrés, inclusifs et durables, parce qu'en règle générale, si le PPP, au moment où il est en train d'être monté, n'est pas monté de manière équilibrée, c'est-à-dire avec un partage des risques entre le public et le privé qui se fasse de la manière la plus, disons, équilibrée possible, s'il n'est pas inclusif, c'est-à-dire s'il ne prend pas en compte les intérêts bien compris des deux parties, s'il n'est pas durable, c'est-à-dire s'il n'est pas inscrit sur une durée suffisante pour que chacun des deux parties puisse trouver son compte, ce qu'on observe en règle générale, c'est des négociations, des renégociations qui se fassent immédiatement, 1 an, 2 ans, alors que c'est peut-être une concession qui était censée durer 20 ans, 30 ans, 40 ans, 50 ans. Et donc ça, c'est des indicateurs qui montrent que, in fine, au moment où ces PPP étaient montés, les dispositions nécessaires n'ont pas été forcément prises. Donc d'où l'intérêt pour nous de travailler avec toutes les parties prenantes et s'assurer que tout soit fait en amont, dans le cadre des études de faisabilité, pour qu'on puisse avoir non pas seulement les aspects techniques, mais aussi les aspects économiques et financiers, les aspects environnementaux et sociaux, parce que quand on met en place des infrastructures, il y a aussi des fois des impacts environnementaux et sociaux qu'il faut absolument adresser, et c'est important, et donc il faut que ça se fasse au moment où l'étude de faisabilité est faite. Il faut aussi regarder, si possible, la possibilité justement d'avoir recours à des partenariats publics-privés, sachant que les ressources publiques se feront de plus en plus rares en raison, en particulier, des impacts négatifs de la pandémie du Covid-19. Voilà. Donc, si j'ai juste un commentaire à faire à ce niveau, c'est que nous avons fait aujourd'hui la première étape. Il nous reste à passer aux études de faisabilité des projets prioritaires. Ensuite, chercher et mobiliser les financements. Et les financements, comme je l'ai dit tantôt, ne viendront pas uniquement ou ne peuvent pas venir uniquement du secteur public, bailleurs compris. D'où donc la pertinence d'avoir recours à des mécanismes de financement innovants qui intègrent le public, le privé et tenir compte aussi des organisations de la société civile pour vraiment arriver à des projets qui soient inclusifs et qui répondent effectivement aux besoins de nos populations. Donc il ne me reste plus qu'à vous remercier et à dire aux organisateurs un grand merci pour la qualité des échanges, la qualité de l'accueil aussi du Kenya pendant ces 3 jours. Merci à vous et excellente journée.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Samata, and it's not for me, but we wish you also to convey our greetings to your colleagues for the cooperation that we've had in the organization of this roundtable. So without further ado and without taking much time, I know it's exactly 2 now, but bear with us for another 5 or so minutes so that we can hear the final word from the organizer, the Director for Economic Cooperation and Regional Integration at the Igad Secretariat, Dr. Osman Babikar. You have the floor, sir.
Thanks, Brazil. Thanks so much. Honorable Ministers, representative of ministers, distinguished participants, and development partners, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm very happy, actually, and let me first, on behalf of His Excellency Dr. Workone Kiboyeho, the Executive Secretary of Igad, and my colleagues from Igad and the Division of Economic Cooperation and Regional Integration, to thank you for coming and participating in this very important roundtable conference. It has been a pleasure interacting and learning through this mutual learning and experience sharing platform, which have been possible through this project. And let me then thank the African Development Bank for the generous support. And it is a continuous support. And we acknowledge also the support of other development partners in different development challenges in our region. Let me first highlight something about the regional integration. It is actually a process, as you know. And the Division of Economic Cooperation and Regional Integration, maybe by definition, it is the heart of this regional integration. But we have to highlight also the importance and the critical contribution of the whole Igad. And by the whole Igad, I mean the divisions, other specialized institutions and programs. They are contributing towards this regional integration through a number of achievements, whether they are in the institutional setup of the Secretariat, whether in social development, whether it is environmental or food security, whether it is in peace and security. So you see, the process is about, the process of interest is about what Igad is doing in the region. And we have to, as regional economic community, to contribute to that continental integration. One of the points I would like also to mention is, please, let us in our countries, whether at national, regional, or international level, let us think strategically, because strategic thinking can give us opportunity to tackle micro plus macro. I mean, everything, every challenge could be tackled through using this is strategic thinking, okay? And the long-term planning, I think, is very good, despite what has been mentioned about the challenge we have to use the strategic thinking. And I have noticed during the 3 days, yesterday I was asking myself, have we followed this strategic thinking even in the implementation of this event or this conference? And the answer was yes, because I just repeated what we have done through the different sessions. I mean, you can notice that we started with thinking about infrastructure. Let me talk in the context of infrastructure, a master plan. We started thinking by mentioning SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals, and we emphasize or highlight the goal number 9. Then we turn to Agenda 2063 of the African Union, and aspiration number 2, the world-class infrastructure. Please, let us work seriously on having world-class. The issue of standardization, you have seen, came out very clearly. And then I just thought of the gross domestic product, or this is how we calculate our economic growth or development, I mean, how we measure it. And I was just noticed yesterday, someone shared with me a report on wealth account. It is also type of how we measure development or economic growth strategically. It is actually an effort by the World Bank, and infrastructure specifically is one of the key elements in that account, because the account is based actually on 4 key elements: productive capital or productive assets, natural assets or capital, and also there is the assets resulting from foreign investments and other resources. But most specifically, infrastructure was there in that account. And it is very interesting type of account as compared to the gross domestic product. So let us, in our planning also, use that type of measure, because we can, it is sustainable and it is inclusive and very comprehensive measurement. And it is, most importantly, let us consider the environment. All the challenges we are talking about now is because we do not respect the environment. Since we are talking about this infrastructure master plan, and let me also appreciate the request and comments came out during the discussion from member states. All of them well taken, and we will consider them. We will share with them, share with our executive secretary and our colleagues in the other divisions as well, all these concerns. And together we can solve all of them. And in this regard of the challenge we have in the region, and in the context of this infrastructure master plan, let me share with you that we have implemented them. We have started implementation. Like the Honorable Minister saying, let us implement good ideas. This master plan now is under implementation through different initiatives, through finance from different development partners, and I can mention some examples. We have started the implementation of it just in June, for example, actually the whole process is a learning process, and it has a multi-stakeholder engagement. Ministries, private sector, civil society actors, NGOs, businesses, private sector, everyone was included in the preparation of this master plan. And so the approach, and if you have noticed, the approach used in the preparation is comprehensive, inclusive, gender responsive, and it also climate, considering the issue of climate change. And it is also considering the issue of job creation. So this economic corridor approach, I would like to recommend, and me, myself, I will use it, because it is a unique type of spatial planning for development. Let us use it in our, to solve our development challenge. And I don't want to talk too much because of the interest of time, but let me conclude by thanking everyone, our honorable ministers, development partners, our distinguished delegates from member states, our colleagues, and let us also acknowledge our colleagues who are supporting us from communication and media. And please reward us in a right way. And also would like to thank our colleagues, our host, Kenya, for the generous hosting and for the generous support for this event. And also the hotel. Let us also, I'm very sure every one of us, thank them for the generous support and facilitation of this conference. I would like to conclude by that we are just facilitators. We are just facilitators. For this regional infrastructure master plan, we have started it with support from the World Bank, for example, and EU and African Development Bank on different, themes like renewable energy, like policy support, capacity development, and ICT, digital infrastructure, among others. I would like to conclude by thanking all of you again for coming and for the fruitful discussion and deliberation during this conference. I would like also to thank, I forgot to thank my colleagues in the division, because I am two hats now. The Division of Economic Cooperation, Zakaria, is there. This is, we call him Infrastructure Master Plan. He's the one behind all this success. And also Aisha, she is also assisting us in the program, and other colleagues and the whole Igad colleagues. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Have a blessed day.
Thank you very much, Director, for those remarks. You just forgot to close the meeting by making that singular statement that you declare this meeting officially closed. So I will give you a second to do that. So I can then say something after you have closed.
Because I do not want it to be closed, but it's okay. Colleagues, I think now we can officially declare that the meeting has come to closure. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you very much once again, Director, and all the speakers. Indeed, it is a privilege and an honor for even myself for for being part of the organizing of this roundtable. At the onset, I also want just to make our sincere apologies if we were short in any way, if there were any shortcomings in terms of logistics, or it is not by commission. It must have been by omission, and we are human. So human is to error, and we apologize if there were any shortcomings. So with that, I also want to indicate that we had a team of rapporteurs who managed to capture all that we deliberated, and very soon in terms of communication, we will be communicating, as my brother Liban indicated, to the right contacts in the member states and with our development partners, so that we can get the final report of the deliberations, including the recommendations that came through. And that also goes with to our other partners from the private sector and also the media. So we thank you very much, and please enjoy your lunch and enjoy the rest of your stay in Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you.